I never expected to discover my wife's affair because of a burst water pipe. We had been married for 21 years, no kids, just us working on our careers. She owned a hair salon that was doing really well, plus 2 houses she rented out that were completely paid off. Meanwhile, I worked at a computer store, making decent money, but nothing compared to her success. I was proud of her achievements. She worked hard for everything she had, including her job with the city that came with great benefits and a solid retirement plan. We lived comfortably in our house, which was almost paid off. Everything seemed perfect until that Sunday afternoon when our kitchen pipe burst. Water flooded everywhere while my wife was supposedly at her salon doing inventory. I called emergency plumbing services and then called her cell phone. No answer. I tried the salon number. No answer there either. Strange for inventory day. She always answered the salon phone. The plumber arrived and fixed the issue within an hour. The mess was substantial, so I decided to drive to the salon to get her help with cleanup. Pulling into the parking lot, I noticed her car was missing. The salon was dark, clearly closed. An uneasy feeling settled in my stomach. I called her cell again, straight to voicemail. Using the spare key, I entered the salon to confirm my suspicions. Empty. No inventory being done. The appointment book sat open on the reception desk. Curious, I flipped through it, noticing a pattern over the last few months. Every Thursday afternoon had an appointment blocked off with only the initials, MD, and a phone number. The same time slot every week for 3 months. The same day she claimed to have city meetings. Something didn't add up. I took a photo of the phone number. Back home, with water damage half cleaned, then I decided to do some research on this phone number. I searched the phone number online. It belonged to a doctor at the hospital where my wife had her annual checkups, Dr. Michael Drake. I scrolled through his profile on the hospital website. He looked to be in his mid-40s, head of cardiology. I remembered my wife mentioning her new doctor a few months back. My mind raced through recent changes in her behavior, the new clothes, the sudden interest in her appearance, the decreased intimacy between us, the constant Thursday city meetings that ran late. Really didn't know how she pulled that off. Having a regular city job, her phone always kept close. It all clicked into place like pieces of a horrible puzzle. That night, she returned home hours after the salon would have closed. When I questioned where she'd been, she claimed to be at the salon. When I mentioned calling and visiting the empty salon, her face changed. She quickly made up a story about running errands. The water damage didn't seem to concern her at all. As she walked past me to the bedroom, I knew the woman I had loved for 21 years was lying straight to my face. That made me suspicious, but I wasn't going to get all mad and yell, tell her she was lying. I was going to do what my dad taught me, dig first. I had been saving money for years, not a lot, but enough to cover emergencies. Hiring a private investigator definitely counted as an emergency. The PI came recommended by a friend who worked in the insurance industry, mostly combating against insurance fraud. We met at my job. He was professional, straightforward, and didn't judge. I handed over half his fee up front and told him about the Thursday appointments, the doctor, and my suspicions. 2 weeks was his estimate for gathering solid evidence. Those 2 weeks were the longest of my life. I went to work, came home, and pretended everything was normal as always. My wife continued her routine, oblivious to my investigation. Every day felt like walking on broken glass. On day 10, the PI contacted me during my lunch break. He sent photos that turned my world upside down. My wife and the doctor holding hands in a park. My wife and the doctor kissing outside his home. My wife entering his home one day at about 2 p.m. On this day, she was supposed to be at work, not leaving until almost 7 p.m. The timestamp on the photos matched exactly with her supposed city meetings. The PI also discovered they had been seeing each other for nearly 2 years, longer than I had suspected, and I was absolutely devastated. Their Thursday routine was just one part of it. Sometimes they met for lunch near the hospital, sometimes at his house. Her hair salon wasn't far from his house. Once at a cabin 2 hours away for a weekend when she told me she was visiting her sister. The evidence was clear as day. Digital copies of all photos were sent to my email, along with a detailed report. I paid the remainder of the PI's fee and thanked him for his thoroughness. That night, I sat in our home office, staring at the photos on my computer screen. 21 years of marriage, 21 years of trust, all destroyed. I closed the laptop and went to bed lying next to the stranger I had married. The morning after receiving the PI's evidence, I called in to work, but told my boss I would be a little late and told him why. Just by my boss's tone on the phone, he sounded shocked, told me to do what I needed to do. He would cover for me. My wife left for her salon as usual, completely unaware that I knew her secret. With her gone, I began making my preparations. First, I contacted a divorce attorney. Not just any attorney, the best one in town. My consultation was scheduled for that afternoon. Next, I gathered all our financial documents, bank statements, investment accounts, retirement plan details, property deeds, tax returns going back 5 years, everything we owned together and separately. I made copies of everything. The meeting with the attorney changed everything. Being in a no-fault divorce state, Connecticut, but does offer fault-based grounds, which means with the latter, her affair could come back to bite her. However, the attorney pointed out several key advantages in my situation. My wife's city job came with an excellent retirement plan, a plan that was considered marital property despite being in her name. Her 2 rental properties were purchased during our marriage. That made them marital assets as well. Our primary residence was also jointly owned. The attorney advised me to document everything and wait. No confrontation yet. No hints that I knew anything. We needed a strategic approach to ensure I wouldn't be left with nothing after 2 decades of marriage. For the next 2 weeks, I lived a double life. At home, I was the same husband I'd always been. Behind the scenes, I worked with my attorney to build our case. I opened a separate bank account. I secured copies of all important documents. I documented the timeline of her affair with photographic evidence. I prepared financially and emotionally for what was coming. The hardest part was acting normal around her, eating dinner together, watching TV, weekend errands, all while knowing our marriage was already over. I noticed things I hadn't noticed before, how she checked her phone constantly, how she always had excuses for being late, how her eyes lit up when certain texts came through. Each observation was another knife in my heart, but I stayed the course. The attorney advised waiting until we had everything in place. Patience would be rewarded. After 3 weeks of preparation, we were ready. The divorce papers were drawn up. I thought of moving to a new place, but my attorney told me not to move. The financial analysis was complete. The evidence was organized. It was time for the confrontation. The confrontation happened at her salon after closing time. I chose this location carefully, the very place where her appointment book had first revealed her betrayal, the very place she used as cover for her affair. I arrived 15 minutes before closing and watched through the window as she finished with her last client. The folder in my hand contained everything, divorce papers and evidence. Once the client left, I entered. The bell above the door announcing my unexpected arrival. Her surprised smile quickly faded, seeing my expression. I locked the door behind me and flipped the sign to closed. Without a word, I walked to her station and placed the folder on the counter in front of her mirror. She looked confused as she opened it. I just stood there, looking at her with my hands in my pocket. Page after page of evidence, photos of her with the doctor, timestamps, locations, the complete timeline of their affair. Her reflection paled in the mirror as she flipped through each damning page. The scissors in her hand clattered to the counter. Behind the evidence lay the divorce papers. Her hands shook as she read through the asset division I was requesting. Half of her retirement plan, our house, half the value of her rental properties. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. I didn't flinch. I placed a pen next to the folder. The next hour was filled with tears and explanations I didn't want to hear. Damn near 2 years of lies condensed into desperate excuses. I remained calm and firm. The evidence was undeniable. The choice was simple. She could sign the papers, and we would proceed with an uncontested divorce, quick, relatively private, or she could fight it, and I'd be forced to show the evidence to everyone, family, friends, and co-workers, if I had their contact information. It wasn't blackmail, it was leverage. 3 days later, she signed the papers. 1 month later, our divorce was finalized. I got the house. I got half her city retirement plan. I got a fair portion of her other assets. She moved into one of her rental properties. The doctor apparently wasn't interested in a divorced woman with financial problems. Their affair ended during our divorce proceedings. I sold my half of the rental properties back to her at market value. I didn't want anything to do with her rental properties. The money went into my retirement fund. It's been a few months since the divorce. I still live in our house, though I've redecorated. No more reminders of her. I kept my job at the computer store. Life is different now, but not worse. Sometimes the best revenge isn't some elaborate scheme. Sometimes it's just making sure you don't get taken advantage of twice. First by the affair, then by the divorce. 21 years of marriage ended because she couldn't be honest. But I made sure those 21 years were not wasted, at least not financially. Thanks, Tony, for sharing my story. Much love from Connecticut.